leading wrong. You think loyalty comes from being liked. You think power comes from being respected. You think control comes from being fair. And that's why people leave you, undermine you, and wait for you to fail. Because loyalty built on affection is fragile. Respect without fear is optional. Fairness without consequences is weakness. Machiavelli understood what you're about to learn. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Not because fear is noble, because fear is reliable. Love is conditional. Fear is constant. Love can turn to hate overnight. Fear remains fear. Subscribe right now because this gets uncomfortable. You're about to learn how to hold power through the strategic deployment of fear and the careful cultivation of loyalty. How to make people follow not because they want to, but because they can't afford not to. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must be feared in such a way that if he does not win love, he avoids hatred. This is the balance. Not pure fear that creates desperation and rebellion, not pure love that creates entitlement and betrayal. The strategic combination of fear that creates compliance and loyalty that creates commitment. Fear makes people obey. Loyalty makes them obey willingly. Together, they create power that doesn't require constant enforcement. This is how you lead when leading actually matters. Lesson 1. Fear must be precise, not random. This is targeted consequence deployment. The goal is creating predictable fear that shapes behavior without creating desperate enemies. Random fear creates chaos. People don't know what triggers punishment, so they can't adjust behavior. They just live in constant dread, or they rebel out of desperation. Precise fear creates order. Clear consequences for specific behaviors. People know exactly what to avoid. They adjust, they comply, they remain functional while being controlled. Here's how precise fear operates. You establish clear boundaries, not vague expectations. Specific lines that must not be crossed. These boundaries protect your position, your interests, your authority. Crossing them has consequences, always, without exception. No one gets a pass, not your favorites, not your most valuable people. No one, because inconsistent consequences destroy fear's effectiveness. If consequences are selective, people gamble on being the exception. If consequences are certain, no one gambles. The consequences themselves must be proportional but memorable. Too severe creates martyrs and desperation. Someone punished too harshly becomes sympathetic. Others rally around them. Or the punished person has nothing left to lose and becomes dangerous. Too lenient creates contempt. If consequences don't hurt, they don't deter. The punishment must be significant enough to make others think twice, but not so severe that it creates a revenge-seeking enemy. You also make consequences visible, not public humiliation that creates martyrs. Strategic visibility. Others see that crossing the line had costs. They don't need details. They need to know that consequences exist and were applied. This creates the deterrent effect. Most people won't test boundaries if they've seen others pay for crossing them. The fear isn't that you're cruel. The fear is that you're consistent. And consistency creates the predictability that allows people to feel safe as long as they comply. Machiavelli understood this as necessary severity, not cruelty for its own sake. Strategic application of consequences that prevent larger problems. One person punished visibly prevents 10 others from testing the same boundary. That's not cruelty, that's efficiency. The fear you create through precise consequence deployment isn't paranoia, it's rational calculation. People calculate, is crossing this line worth a certain consequence? Usually no. Fear accomplished its purpose without additional enforcement. This also means you don't threaten idly. Every threat you make must be one you can and will execute. Empty threats destroy your credibility faster than no threats at all. If people learn your threats are hollow, fear evaporates. They test boundaries knowing consequences won't come. Precise fear means you threaten rarely and execute always. Restraint in threatening combined with certainty in executing creates fear that's taken seriously. Drop a comment right now. Precise fear. Let me know you understand that random cruelty creates chaos, but strategic consequences create order. Lesson 2. Loyalty must be earned through value exchange, not demanded through authority. This is the sophisticated understanding that loyalty isn't owed to you because of your position. It's given to you because of what you provide. People follow authority because they must. They're loyal to leaders who make following rewarding. The distinction is critical. Compliance comes from fear. Loyalty comes from benefit. You need both. Here's how you build loyalty through value exchange. You identify what your people need, not what you think they should want, what they actually need. Some need recognition. Some need autonomy. Some need resources. Some need protection. Some need opportunity. You become the source of what they need. Not the only source if possible, but the most reliable source. The person who consistently delivers what they actually value. This creates dependency, but not the resentful kind. When people get value from you that they can't easily get elsewhere, they become invested in your success. Your success becomes the mechanism of their success. They're not loyal because they love you. They're loyal because you're useful to them, and usefulness creates more reliable loyalty than affection ever could. Affection fades. Usefulness remains useful. You also create situations where their success is visible to others but attributed to your leadership. They get recognition. You get credit for enabling their recognition. This ties their reputation to your effectiveness. If you fall, their achievements become questioned because you enabled them. They have incentive to keep you in power because your power legitimizes their accomplishments. Another loyalty mechanism is selective trust. You give high performers more autonomy, more responsibility, more access to you. Not because you actually trust them more, but because trusted status is valuable and they'll work to maintain it. Being in the inner circle, having your ear, getting first access to opportunities, these are currencies. You control those currencies. People compete for them. The competition creates loyalty because losing trusted status means losing valuable access. But here's the darker element. You also make it costly to betray you. Not through threats, through structure. You position yourself so that betraying you damages them. Maybe you control access to opportunities they need. Maybe you've positioned them so that your enemies would destroy them too. You're creating incentive structures where their rational self-interest aligns with your continued power. That's not manipulation, that's game theory. Machiavelli wrote that friendship which is gained by purchase and not through grandeur and nobility of spirit is bought but not secured. He's saying loyalty purchased through favors alone is unreliable. But loyalty built through value exchange, where both parties benefit from the relationship continuing, that's secured. You're not buying loyalty with gifts. You're building it through mutual advantage, where betrayal damages them as much as you. The loyalty you're building isn't love. It's rational commitment to a relationship that serves their interests. They stay loyal because the math makes sense, because leaving would cost them, because you provide value they need, because betraying you damages their position. That's more reliable than loyalty built on affection. Lesson 3. Fear and loyalty must work together, not against each other. This is the sophisticated balance. Too much fear without loyalty creates rebellion. People comply until they find an opportunity to escape or destroy you. Too much loyalty without fear creates entitlement. People take your favor for granted and test boundaries assuming forgiveness. The combination creates stable power. Fear prevents betrayal. Loyalty prevents resentment. Here's how you balance them. You never punish loyal people publicly unless absolutely necessary. When someone who's been loyal crosses a line, you handle it privately if possible. The consequence still exists. But the public shaming doesn't. This preserves their dignity while enforcing the boundary. They experience the fear of consequences, but also the loyalty reward of private handling. Others see that loyalty buys you private correction rather than public destruction. That's valuable. That creates incentive to be loyal. But you also never let loyalty excuse boundary violations completely. If a loyal person crosses a critical line and faces no consequence, others see that loyalty creates immunity. Then everyone competes to appear loyal while actually being manipulative. Loyal people must face consequences for violations, but those consequences can be less severe and less public than what disloyal people face for the same violation. That's the balance. The boundary remains enforced. Loyalty provides mitigation, not immunity. You also create clear paths from fear to loyalty. People who comply out of fear long enough should see opportunities to earn loyalty status. If fear is the only status available, people stay fearful and resentful. If compliance can earn trusted status over time, people have incentive to move from fearful compliance to loyal commitment. You're showing that the relationship can evolve. That fear is the floor, not the ceiling. Another balance mechanism is alternating which you deploy. You don't maintain constant fear and constant reward. Instead, periods of discipline followed by periods of reward. After enforcing boundaries visibly, you create opportunities for people to earn favor. The contrast makes both more effective. The fear is more impactful because it's not constant. The loyalty rewards are more valuable because they follow periods where fear was prominent. Machiavelli taught that injuries should be done altogether so that being less tasted, they give less offense. Benefits should be granted little by little so that they may be better enjoyed. You concentrate fear in moments of enforcement. You distribute rewards over time. Fear impact comes from concentration. Loyalty building comes from consistent small benefits. The final balance element is making fear protect them, not just control them. Your consequences should target behavior that damages the group or your leadership. When you punish someone, frame it as protecting others from that person's destructive behavior. You're not the tyrant punishing disobedience. You're the protector eliminating threats to everyone's stability. This makes fear feel like safety to those who comply. Comment. Strategic balance if you understand how fear and loyalty work together, not against each other. Lesson 4. You must appear strong always, even when you're weak. This is perception management as power maintenance. The moment people believe you're weak, both fear and loyalty collapse. Fear requires belief in your ability to execute consequences. Loyalty requires belief that providing value to you will continue generating returns. Perceived weakness destroys both. Even if you're actually weak temporarily, you cannot appear weak. Here's how you maintain the appearance of strength. You never show desperation. Even when you need something badly, you negotiate from a position of appearing to have options. Desperation invites exploitation. People who sense you need them more than they need you will leverage that imbalance. They'll demand more, provide less, test boundaries. So you never reveal need, you reveal preferences. I prefer this outcome, but I have alternatives. Whether those alternatives exist is irrelevant. The perception that they exist is what matters. You also never explain or justify decisions excessively. Explaining sounds like defending. Defending sounds like your position is questionable. You make decisions, you communicate them. You don't justify them to people whose approval you don't need. This doesn't mean you're arbitrary. This means you don't perform insecurity through over-explanation. Strong positions don't require elaborate defense. Another strength display is controlling your emotional presentation. You don't let anger, fear, or frustration show in ways that suggest loss of control. calculated anger deployed strategically is strength. Uncontrolled anger is weakness. Fear shown is weakness. Frustration shown is weakness. You maintain composure even when situations are dire. Composure signals that you have capacity to handle what's happening. Composure is a strength signal that makes people believe you're more capable than you might actually feel. You also demonstrate competence consistently in your domain. Whatever your area of authority, you must be visibly competent at it. People follow leaders who know what they're doing. Incompetence shown destroys both fear and loyalty. Fear of an incompetent person is resentment waiting to become rebellion. Loyalty to an incompetent person is bad career strategy. Competence is the foundation that makes fear rational and loyalty sensible. Machiavelli wrote that the prince should seem to be all mercy, faith, integrity, humanity, and religion. People judge by appearances. You appear strong, competent, in control, and principled even when you're struggling. The appearance maintains the structure while you fix actual problems invisibly. Weakness shown destroys the structure before you can fix the problems. The final element of appearing strong is never revealing internal divisions. If you have conflicts with other leaders, advisors, or lieutenants, those conflicts stay private. Public division makes you appear weak. It invites external exploitation. Internal conflicts happen. Strong leaders resolve them privately. Weak leaders let them become public spectacles that destroy their authority. You're not being dishonest by managing perception. You're being strategic. Power is partially real and partially perceived. The perception component is larger than people think. Maintaining the perception of strength while building actual strength is how you survive periods of vulnerability. Here's who you become when you master this. You're the leader people follow because they calculate that following serves their interests better than any alternative. You're feared enough that they don't test boundaries. You're valuable enough that they don't want to lose access. You appear strong even during vulnerable periods. You enforce consequences precisely and consistently. You reward loyalty systematically. You've created a power structure that's self-maintaining because everyone's incentives align with your continued authority. You're not loved by everyone. You might not be loved by anyone. That's fine. Love is unreliable. You're followed. Consistently, reliably, by people whose rational calculation says following you is their best option. By people who fear the consequences of betrayal. By people who value the benefits of loyalty. That's more durable than love ever was. Machiavelli never told you to be cruel for cruelty's sake. He told you to be strategic about power. Fear deployed precisely creates order. Loyalty built through value creates commitment. Together, they create leadership that survives challenges, betrayals, and the inevitable tests that power faces. You're not the villain. You're the leader who understands that power requires both force and favor. Subscribe right now. Turn on notifications. Like this video, because this channel teaches Machiavellian leadership for people who understand that nice leaders finish last and effective leaders finish in power. Comment fear and loyalty if you understand the balance. Comment precise consequences if you're building predictable fear. Comment value exchange if you're building rational loyalty. Comment I lead now if you're becoming the leader who holds power through strategic deployment of both. Share this with someone trying to lead through being liked and watching their authority erode. They need to understand that leadership isn't a popularity contest. It's a power structure. You're not trying to be liked anymore. You're building authority that lasts, that survives challenges, that commands follow-through not because people love you, but because their calculation says following serves them and betraying costs them. That's Machiavellian leadership. Fear that creates order. Loyalty that creates commitment. Consequences that are certain. Rewards that are valuable. Strength that's visible. Competence that's demonstrated. You don't maintain power through force alone. You maintain it through strategic fear that shapes behavior, systematic loyalty that creates commitment, and strength presentation that makes betrayal unthinkable. Welcome to Machiavellian leadership, where fear is precise, loyalty is rational, consequences are certain, rewards are systematic, and power maintains itself because you built the structure correctly. You're not the beloved leader, you're the followed leader, the feared enough leader, the valuable enough leader, and followed is all that matters. Beloved is optional, followed is power. Hit subscribe, hit like, comment, share. You're not leading to be liked, you're leading to be followed, and being followed requires fear that prevents betrayal and loyalty that prevents resentment. That's Machiavellian power, reliable, strategic, durable, effective. Welcome to leadership that lasts. Thanks for watching.